In the blistering heat of the desert, the remote outpost stands as humanity's last line of defense. For months, it has been a sanctuary for survivors, a place where people have learned to live with the new world of the undead. The once bustling military base has transformed into a small community, with civilians and soldiers alike trying to rebuild their lives in the unforgiving sands. The survivors' days are filled with routine, fortifying the walls, scavenging for supplies, and keeping watch over the ever-growing horde of zombies lurking just beyond the perimeter. The undead are a constant threat, mindlessly wandering in the desert heat, aimlessly circling the outpost like vultures. But something is changing. It begins subtly, an unexplainable shift in behavior. One afternoon, while a team of scouts is returning from a supply run, they notice something unusual: a group of zombies gathered in a circle, as if they are waiting for something. The scouts, usually accustomed to the mindless shuffling of the undead, are unsettled by the eerie scene. One of the zombies lifts its head, its glazed eyes locking onto the scout's position. For a moment, it doesn't just wander off. It watches. Back inside the compound, Sergeant James Hollis, the leader of the Outpost's defense unit, dismisses the scout's concerns. He has seen everything, from hordes of zombies to lone creatures dragging themselves across the wasteland. To him, it's all routine. But the unease in his soldiers' voices is hard to ignore. The zombies are getting closer, and they seem to be acting in unison, like a pack of predators. As the sun sets, the temperature drops, and the compound comes alive with activity. It's a safe haven, for now, but the soldiers know that this peaceful night might be the last. Inside the mess hall, the survivors gather for dinner. James listens to the murmurs of worry, people noticing more zombies hanging around the perimeter, their movements more deliberate. He pulls one of his senior officers, Lieutenant Clara Hayes, aside. She's seen something too. Clara, who's been stationed here since the beginning of the outbreak, is no stranger to the undead, but lately, she's observed a strange pattern. Zombies that once wandered aimlessly are now stopping at specific locations, staring at the walls of the outpost, and even trying to push through weak spots in the fences. It's as if they're learning. "What do you think it is?" James asks her, his voice low. "I don't know," Clara admits, her eyes dark with concern. "But I'm not sure we're dealing with the same kind of undead anymore." James nods. He's not one to panic, but the strange behavior has him on edge. He knows that, if the zombies are indeed becoming smarter, the outpost might not hold for long. What's worse, he suspects they may have already breached the first layer of their defense without anyone noticing. Outside, the moon casts a pale light over the desert. The silence is broken only by the occasional grunt or shuffle of the undead as they roam the wasteland. But now, there's something new in the air, an unsettling stillness. For the first time since the outbreak, James feels a chill run down his spine. There's more to this than just a horde. The zombies are adapting. And they are no longer mindless creatures driven only by hunger. At the same time, the survivors remain unaware of the growing danger outside their walls. They continue their routines, unaware that they are being watched, studied, and, most disturbingly, anticipated. The intelligence of the dead is evolving. It's only a matter of time before they make their move. As the night deepens, the zombies outside remain eerily still, as if they, too, are waiting for something. James and Clara take their positions on the lookout, scanning the dark horizon. But even as they try to stay vigilant, they can't shake the feeling that this is no longer just another typical night at the outpost. The next morning, Sergeant James Hollis wakes up to the sound of a single, sharp gunshot. The alarm bells ring immediately, jolting the survivors from their sleep. In the dead of night, one of the perimeter guards had spotted someone, approaching the outpost. It wasn't a solitary zombie, but a whole group of them, acting in ways they had never seen before. They were no longer mindlessly wandering or stumbling. They were moving with purpose. James rushes to the command center, where Clara and other officers are already analyzing the situation. The camera feeds from the outer posts reveal a shocking sight. Zombies are gathering in larger clusters, standing close to the walls, almost like they're strategizing. They don't appear to be attacking, at least not yet. Instead, they move with intent, coordinating their actions. Clara runs a hand through her hair, frustration and fear creeping into her voice. This isn't just instinct. They're learning. It's like they're studying the outpost, looking for weaknesses. James watches the footage closely. There's a chilling moment where one of the zombies seems to gesture toward a weak spot in the eastern wall, as though it's pointing to something that needs to be exploited. It's not something he could have imagined just days ago. These were the same creatures that had once been nothing more than mindless predators. But now, they were evolving, becoming smarter. We need to find out what's causing this change, James says, turning to Clara. There's more going on here than just the usual undead threat. If we don't act fast, we might be facing a whole new breed of enemy. James orders the team to launch a full reconnaissance mission to assess the perimeter and gather any new intel. As he prepares to leave, one of his soldiers, Private Mason, approaches him with an uneasy expression. "Sergeant, you might want to see this," Mason says, leading James to the supply room. He points to a pile of scattered papers, a journal from one of the original research teams who had been stationed at the outpost before the outbreak. The journal entry details an experiment designed to study the effects of environmental stress on zombie behavior. The researchers had noticed subtle changes in the way zombies reacted to certain stimuli. At first, they thought it was a fluke, an anomaly. But the entries grow increasingly concerning. One report indicates that the zombies were able to adapt to environmental challenges, growing more alert and even working together to overcome obstacles. "This is it," Clara says, her voice grim. "It's not just the apocalypse anymore. These zombies are evolving, adapting to their surroundings and learning from their mistakes." As the realization sets in, the urgency increases. If the zombies can learn and adapt, it could only be a matter of time before they breach the walls. The survivors inside the outpost are starting to realize that they aren't just facing a horde, they're facing an enemy that's capable of outsmarting them. The reconnaissance team returns with shocking news. Several of the zombie clusters outside have begun showing signs of coordinated attacks. They've started to focus on specific areas where the walls are weakest, gathering at those points in unnervingly calculated formations. There's even evidence of some zombies attempting to communicate with each other. It's not just random noise, it sounds almost like a form of language, though garbled and distorted. "We need to think differently," James says, pacing the command center. "These things are more than we bargained for. We can't keep treating them like the old zombies we used to know. They're adapting, and so must we." The survivors are on edge. It's clear that time is running out. They've fortified the walls, but the threat is no longer just from the outside, it's from within. James calls for an emergency meeting with the outpost's senior leadership. They must come up with a new strategy to deal with the evolving enemy. During the meeting, a new theory is presented, that the zombies' intelligence may be a result of some sort of mutation, perhaps triggered by the harsh desert environment or the strange atmospheric phenomena that have been occurring in the area. There's a chance, however slim, that the desert's extreme conditions are fostering the evolution of the undead. We can't afford to wait for answers. We need to act now, James insists. Get the teams ready. We're going to launch a full-scale operation to uncover exactly what's happening out there. The plan is risky, but the stakes are higher than ever. If they don't uncover the source of this change soon, the outpost may not survive much longer. As night falls, the air inside the compound grows thick with tension. Every survivor knows they are walking a fine line between life and death. And with the zombies getting smarter by the day, no one is certain how much longer they can hold out. As the last light of the day fades, the survivors prepare for their most dangerous mission yet, to venture into the heart of the desert, where the dead are becoming smarter, and the threat of extinction grows closer with each passing hour. As the sun rises over the desert, casting long shadows across the walls of the outpost, Sergeant James Hollis assembles his team for the most dangerous mission yet. The plan is simple, but fraught with risk: venture into the heart of the desert to investigate the source of the zombies' unnerving intelligence. They need answers, and they need them fast before the situation escalates any further. The team, composed of seasoned soldiers and a handful of civilians who volunteered to help, are equipped with the best gear the outpost has to offer. The heat of the desert is unforgiving, and every step forward is a reminder of how isolated and vulnerable they are. But for the survivors, this mission is a matter of life or death. The smarter the zombies become, the harder it will be to hold them off. Clara stands by James, her eyes scanning the horizon. "You're sure about this?" she asks quietly, the doubt clear in her voice. "If the zombies are evolving this quickly, who knows what we'll find out there?" James takes a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the sand dunes in the distance. "We don't have a choice. The longer we stay in the dark, the worse it's going to get. If they're getting smarter, we need to know why. Only then can we plan our next move." With a final nod of resolve, the team moves out. As they leave the safety of the outpost, the once familiar desert landscape feels alien. The sand, which had always seemed like a barren wasteland, now feels like a vast, dangerous ocean, stretching endlessly before them. The sun beats down mercilessly, and the air shimmers with heat, making every step feel like it could be their last. The journey is slow and treacherous. The sand shifts beneath their feet, and the occasional windstorm blurs their vision. The team moves cautiously, watching for any signs of movement in the distance. As they advance, the shadows of the zombies, once an occasional presence in the desert, become more frequent, lurking just beyond their sight, watching them with an intelligence that makes the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. At the halfway point, the team takes a brief rest under the shelter of a rocky outcrop. As they drink water and check their gear, James notices something troubling. The air is thick with tension. The zombies aren't just roaming, they seem to be following the group at a distance, keeping pace as if anticipating their every move. It's an unnerving feeling, as though they are not only aware of the survivors, but are actively tracking them, studying their behavior. "Something's not right," Clara mutters, her eyes scanning the horizon nervously. "They've been shadowing us for hours, but not making a move. It's like they're waiting for something." James's grip tightens on his rifle. "Stay alert. We can't afford to let our guard down." The group continues their trek, but the sense of being watched only intensifies. Every now and then, a lone zombie will stagger into view, but instead of attacking, it simply stops and stares at them. It's as if the undead have learned to be patient, to wait for the right moment. And that moment may be closer than they think. As dusk falls, the temperature plummets, and the team sets up camp for the night. The desert is eerily silent, save for the occasional crackle of wind. Around the campfire, the survivors keep their voices low, speaking only in hushed tones. The darkness feels oppressive, heavy with the threat of the unknown. "I don't like this," Private Mason says, his voice trembling slightly as he peers into the shadows. "It's too quiet. Where are all the zombies?" James pauses, considering the question. "They're out there," he says, his tone grim. "But they're being careful. We're not dealing with the same horde we fought before." Just as James finishes speaking, a strange noise breaks the silence. It's faint at first, like a low growl or the wind scraping against the rocks. But then it becomes unmistakable, a series of guttural sounds, layered one on top of another, like a distorted language being spoken. The survivors freeze, their hearts pounding. It's not the sound of the typical zombie moan. It's something different, more coordinated, more deliberate. The zombies are communicating. "We need to move," Clara says urgently. "Now." Without hesitation, the group gathers their gear and begins to break camp, their movements swift and practiced. The sound of the zombies' language grows louder, and soon, the unmistakable shuffle of feet signals that the undead are closing in. But they're not mindlessly charging. Instead, they move as a unit, circling the survivors like predators sizing up their prey. James leads the group through the rocky terrain, but as they press forward, the zombies continue to shadow them, staying just out of sight but always close enough to keep the survivors on edge. The sense of being hunted is palpable, and with every passing minute, the fear of what might happen next grows stronger. The team is almost at the edge of the desert when they hear something else, an unmistakable thud, followed by a series of grunts. One of the zombies, much larger than the others, emerges from the shadows. It's different, more powerful, and as it steps into the dim light of the fading sun, the survivors realize they're not dealing with ordinary zombies anymore. This one has muscles bulging beneath its decaying skin. It stands taller, its eyes sharper, its movements more deliberate. It's as though this particular zombie has evolved to be the apex predator of its kind. And it's coming straight for them. The massive zombie looms before them, its grotesque form casting a long shadow across the desert sand. Its decaying skin ripples with unnatural strength, muscles bulging and twitching as it takes deliberate steps forward. The survivors instinctively reach for their weapons, but the chilling realization hits them all at once: this is no ordinary zombie. This is something entirely new, something far more dangerous than they've ever faced. Sergeant James Hollis's mind races as he assesses the creature. It stands almost 7 feet tall, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the setting sun. Unlike the typical zombies, this one moves with purpose, each step calculated, almost as if it knows exactly what it's doing. The survivors instinctively retreat, but the creature doesn't rush them. It's content to watch, to circle, as though waiting for the perfect moment to strike. James grips his rifle tighter, his voice steady but urgent. Get back. Don't engage unless you have no choice. Stay together. The survivors fall into a tight formation, moving slowly as they retreat toward the cover of the rocks. But the creature follows them, never rushing, never hesitating. Its movements are unnervingly precise. It's learning, just like the others. And it knows that the survivors are vulnerable. This is no longer a horde, they're dealing with an apex predator, a zombie that has transcended its original instincts and become something more intelligent, more deadly. Clara, who has been observing the creature from a distance, whispers, "It's not just its size, it's the way it's acting. It's like it's planning its next move." James nods, his brow furrowed in thought. The group needs to get back to the outpost as quickly as possible, but this new threat complicates things. The creature isn't just one monster, it's a symbol of the zombie's evolving intelligence. If this thing is a leader, it's only a matter of time before others like it appear, leading the horde with coordinated strategies. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbles, a low, menacing growl. The larger zombie stands completely still for a moment, its head tilting slightly as if listening for something. Then, without warning, it charges. The survivors have only seconds to react. Open fire! James commands. The team unloads a volley of bullets into the creature, but the impact seems to have little effect. It keeps moving, its speed and agility terrifying for something so massive. It's only when Mason fires a round directly into its chest that the creature stumbles back for a moment, its eyes flashing with primal fury. Headshots! James yells, realizing that the creature's resilience is beyond their previous experience. The usual tactics, aim for the head, don't seem to be as effective. The creature's evolved form is too powerful, too durable to be taken down by conventional means. But the zombie isn't alone. From the shadows, more figures emerge, several smaller zombies, each one moving in coordination, flanking the survivors. The horde is no longer a mindless mass, it's a strategic force, learning, adapting, and evolving with every passing moment. We've got to get to higher ground. James shouts. Move now! The survivors sprint toward a nearby ridge, hoping to put distance between themselves and the pursuing creatures. But as they ascend the rocky terrain, James catches a glimpse of something truly disturbing. The larger zombie isn't simply leading the charge, it's directing the others, pointing, as if organizing the attack. Clara, breathless, looks back at James. It's leading them. This thing, it's not just smarter, it's a leader. They're following it, learning from it. We're not dealing with a typical outbreak anymore, James mutters. This is something new. Something more dangerous. The group reaches the ridge, but they don't have much time to rest. The zombies are closing in. With the larger predator leading the charge, the survivors know that every moment they delay puts them in greater danger. As the last of the group scrambles to reach safety, James takes a moment to glance back at the approaching horde. It's clear that they're being herded. The zombies are no longer just stumbling aimlessly, they're working together, using tactics they shouldn't know how to use. We need to get back to the outpost. Now, James says. We have to warn everyone about what's coming. Clara, scanning the horizon, shakes her head. We'll never make it back that way in time. The zombies are out there, waiting for us to make a move. We're trapped. James looks at her, then at the rest of the survivors. He can see the fear in their eyes. They're all running on adrenaline, but the reality of their situation is starting to sink in. They're no longer just fighting for survival against the undead. They're fighting a war against an evolving enemy that's growing smarter, more coordinated, and more deadly by the minute. In a desperate bid to buy them some time, James decides on a new plan. We'll head for the abandoned facility, he says. It's not far from here. If we can get inside, we might be able to hold them off and regroup. But we have to move fast. The survivors begin their descent down the ridge, hearts pounding as the sound of the horde grows louder. The larger zombie is still leading its pack, but they're closing in quickly. Every step feels like it could be their last. As they move through the desert, the sun begins to set, and the shadows stretch long, covering the survivors in a cloak of darkness. But the darkness is no comfort. It's a reminder that they're not just fighting for survival anymore. They're fighting an enemy that is smarter, stronger, and more dangerous than they ever imagined. And as the first of the zombies reach the base of the ridge, they know the real battle is only just beginning. The abandoned facility looms ahead, its broken walls and rusted gates a grim reminder of a world long lost. The survivors are moving quickly now, driven by the urgency of their situation. Behind them, the sound of the horde's coordinated march grows louder, the unmistakable shuffle of footsteps almost deafening in the desert silence. James leads the group, his mind racing as he scans the perimeter of the facility. The walls, cracked and weathered, offer some cover, but he knows it won't hold for long. The zombies, now smarter and more strategic than ever, are not just wandering aimlessly, they're hunting. And they're getting better at it with every passing moment. Everyone, inside. James orders, his voice urgent. Move fast. Clara, Mason, and the others follow his command, sprinting for the open door of the facility. But as they approach, James hears it, a faint clicking sound, like metal scraping against metal. He stops in his tracks, a chill running down his spine. The door is not just hanging open by accident. Someone, or something, has been here recently. James, what's wrong? Clara asks, noticing his hesitation. He holds up a hand, signaling for the group to stop. The clicking sound grows louder, and then, in the dim light of the setting sun, he sees it, figures moving in the shadows, silent but purposeful. They're here, James mutters under his breath. They've already been inside. The survivors gather close, pressing themselves against the cold concrete walls of the facility. The door is wide enough for a few of them to slip through at a time, but they can't risk being caught outside, vulnerable to the evolving horde. James scans the area, his eyes searching for a way to secure the entrance. We need to get in, now, he commands, his voice low but firm. They move in tandem, entering the facility one by one, their hearts pounding in their chests. As soon as the last survivor crosses the threshold, James slams the door shut behind them, pushing against the heavy metal frame. A loud thud resonates as the zombies outside slam into the door, their relentless pounding reverberating through the room. Inside, the group takes a moment to catch their breath. The facility is dark, the air thick with dust and decay. The sound of the undead outside is muffled, but it's clear the zombies are not giving up easily. They're waiting for them to make a mistake, waiting for the right moment to break through. Where now? Mason asks, his voice strained. We can't just wait here. They'll eventually get through. James moves to the center of the room, his eyes scanning the surroundings. The facility is large, its rooms stretching off in various directions. He needs a plan, and fast. There's no time to waste. We need to fortify this place, James says, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Start by blocking the windows and securing any exits. We don't know how many of them are out there, and we don't know how long we'll be able to hold them off. We need to make sure they can't get in. Clara and Mason nod, immediately setting to work. But as they move through the dark corridors, a sense of unease settles over the group. The place feels abandoned, yes, but also strangely alive, as if something else is lurking within its walls. James's instincts tell him they're not alone. Stay close, James orders, his hand hovering near his sidearm. Watch your corners. The group moves deeper into the facility, the air growing colder as they pass through a series of dimly lit hallways. The walls are lined with old equipment, some of it still functional, some long forgotten. The place feels like a forgotten world, one where time stopped long before the outbreak. As they reach a large central room, the survivors stop dead in their tracks. In the middle of the room is a large metal door, one that seems far sturdier than anything else in the facility. The door is sealed shut, its surface scarred with scratches, as though something had tried to claw its way inside. Do you think it's safe to go in? Clara asks, her voice trembling with apprehension. James steps forward cautiously, his hand on the door handle. There's a sense of foreboding in the air, as though whatever lies beyond this door is a key to understanding what's happening out in the desert. He hesitates for a moment, weighing the risks. We don't have a choice, he says finally, pushing the door open. The hinges creak loudly as the door swings open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. Inside, there are rows of metal tables, each one covered with old equipment and papers. But what catches their attention immediately is the strange, glowing substance in the center of the room, a pulsating, neon green liquid contained in large tanks, connected to a series of wires and machines. Is that? Mason begins, his voice trailing off in shock. It's biohazardous material, James says grimly, as he examines the tanks. This must be where they were experimenting with the virus. Clara steps closer, her eyes wide. This is it, isn't it? The source of all of this. This is where it started. James nods, his mind racing. The zombies outside are evolving, growing smarter, and this facility, with its experiments, could be the answer. But it's also a ticking time bomb. The realization hits him hard, whatever is in these tanks, whatever is causing the zombies to evolve, is still active. Shut it down, James says suddenly. We need to shut this whole thing down before it gets any worse. The survivors begin to look for a way to disable the machines, but time is running out. The pounding on the facility's walls grows louder, the horde closing in, smarter and more determined than ever. The stakes have never been higher. If they can't figure out a way to stop this, the entire world could be doomed. The hum of the machines in the facility fills the air, creating an eerie atmosphere as the survivors scramble to figure out how to disable the biohazardous equipment. The tension is palpable. The pounding from outside grows louder, and every second feels like a countdown to disaster. James steps forward, his eyes scanning the control panels in front of him. There's a series of levers, buttons, and screens flashing with cryptic information. The liquid in the tanks pulses ominously, glowing brighter with each passing moment. Clara stands beside him, her hands trembling as she reads through the notes scattered across one of the nearby desks. This was a research facility, Clara murmurs. Look at these files. They were working on weaponizing the virus, enhancing it. It wasn't just an outbreak. They were trying to make it worse. Make the zombies more effective. James swallows hard, the weight of her words sinking in. Weaponizing? For what? This wasn't just some accident? No, Clara replies, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. This was intentional. They were looking for a way to control the virus, to create a new breed of soldier, something smarter, stronger. They weren't trying to stop the outbreak, they were trying to accelerate it. Mason, who has been scanning the perimeter of the room, turns back to face the group, his face etched with concern. We need to shut this down now. The machines, they're still running. That liquid, it's still being pumped into the system. James nods, his mind racing. The zombies outside are more organized than ever, and now he knows why. they've been exposed to something far worse than the typical infection. This was no random accident, it was part of a larger plan, one that was already in motion long before the outbreak spread to the world at large. "We need to cut the power," James says, his voice low but firm. "If we don't, the zombies are going to evolve even further. They're already getting smarter. If they have access to this, who knows what could happen next?" Clara takes a step forward, her eyes fixed on the control panels. There's no guarantee that shutting it down will work. What if they've already infected the entire desert? James meets her gaze. "We can't think about what might happen. We need to act now." Without wasting another second, the group begins to work together, each person searching for a way to stop the flow of the biohazardous liquid. Mason tries to access the main power grid, pulling open panels and searching for a way to disconnect the facility from its power source. Clara and James move to the tanks, inspecting the connections, looking for anything that might stop the deadly substance from continuing its spread. But as they work, the room grows colder. The hum of the machines becomes more pronounced, vibrating the metal walls with a low, ominous thrum. Suddenly, the room flickers, and the lights cut out. Darkness fills the space, save for the eerie glow of the tanks. The pounding from outside has stopped. "What the hell?" Mason mutters under his breath, his flashlight illuminating the room in quick, erratic bursts. James's heart races. The silence feels wrong. Too quiet. He instinctively pulls his weapon from his side and motions for the others to do the same. "Stay sharp. This doesn't feel right." Clara's breath catches as she shines her light toward the tanks. The liquid inside the containers is moving, not in a natural flow, but as if something inside is alive, shifting and growing. A strange, rippling motion undulates beneath the surface, and for the first time, James notices the markings on the tanks. "These aren't just tanks," Clara says, her voice trembling. "They're breeding chambers. They've been growing the next stage of the virus here." Before anyone can respond, the ground shakes with a violent thud. The facility groans as if something huge is slamming into its walls, rattling the building to its core. The survivors grab for whatever cover they can find as the sound of scraping metal fills the room. Then, the unmistakable screech of metal tearing apart echoes through the facility. The door to the central room, the one they'd shut behind them earlier, is slowly being ripped off its hinges from the outside. "They're here!" James shouts, the realization hitting like a punch to the gut. The zombies outside are breaking in, and they're not coming in waves. They're organized, coordinated, and they're much smarter than before. With a violent crash, the door is torn free, and in the doorway stands the towering form of the lead zombie, the one that had followed them from the desert. Its eyes gleam in the dim light, no longer the vacant, mindless stare of a typical undead, but an expression of pure malice. It's no longer just a brute force, it's hunting them, adapting. "Everyone, move!" James shouts. Mason turns and sprints toward the back exit, but as he moves, the ground trembles again, this time accompanied by the sound of more footsteps, smaller, quicker. Zombies, dozens of them, flood the room from the shadows. They're not just stumbling anymore, they're attacking with purpose, cutting off any chance of escape. Clara grabs James's arm. "The machines," she cries. "We have to shut it down now, or they'll keep evolving." James's mind races, adrenaline surging as he assesses their options. The door is compromised. The zombies are inside, and they're surrounded. They've only got one shot at this. "We're running out of time," James says, pushing through the chaos. "I'm going for the power grid. You two take the tanks." Mason and Clara nod, moving in different directions as James makes a dash toward the control panel. The zombies advance, but now, there's something else driving them, a plan. The evolution has begun, and the monsters they've been fighting are no longer just undead, they are hunters. As James begins pulling levers, he knows that if they fail, they won't just be fighting for survival, they'll be fighting an unstoppable enemy. The room is chaos. The survivors are scattered, their movements desperate as the sound of the zombies tearing through the facility's walls grows louder. The lead zombie, now more intelligent and aggressive, stands at the center of the room, its eyes gleaming with a malicious hunger. It's not just an animalistic force, it's a predator, and it's hunting them with purpose. James sprints toward the control panel, his heart pounding in his chest. He can hear the scratching, the dragging footsteps of the undead drawing closer, but he focuses all his energy on the task at hand. The machines that had created this nightmare are still running, the liquid inside the tanks swirling in dangerous patterns, growing more erratic by the second. Come on, James mutters under his breath, pulling at the wires and buttons frantically. His fingers tremble as he moves from one panel to the next, trying to find the correct sequence to shut everything down. Meanwhile, Clara and Mason are on the other side of the room, surrounded by the ominous tanks that have been producing the biohazardous substance. Clara's hands are shaking as she works to stop the flow of the liquid, her mind racing. "There's no time," she says, breathless. "We need to stop it before it spreads any further. If we don't, we'll be facing an army of smarter zombies." Mason, his face grim, pulls at a series of levers, trying to disengage the machinery. But the more they try, the more resistance they encounter. The machines are locked in place, the system refusing to comply. They can feel it now, the growing awareness of the zombies outside. They're learning, adapting, and soon the survivors won't be able to outrun them. Suddenly, the lead zombie lunges forward, its strength and speed terrifyingly different from the mindless hordes they've faced before. It slams into Mason with brutal force, sending him crashing to the ground. Clara screams, rushing to his side, but the zombie is already advancing on her. "Clara!" James shouts from across the room, his voice a warning. He's so close to the control panel, but the noise of the undead and the pounding of his own heart drown out everything else. Clara pulls out her weapon, aiming for the zombie's head, but the creature dodges with unnatural agility. It moves with precision, unlike anything they've seen before. In a moment of panic, Clara pulls the trigger. The shot rings out, but the zombie merely snarls, unfazed. She fumbles for another shot, her hands too frantic. "Get away from her!" James roars, throwing his weight into a desperate sprint. He dives across the room, knocking the zombie off Clara and sending it tumbling backward. For a moment, the group regains their footing, but they know this is only temporary. The zombie is already recovering, its cold eyes locking on them once again. In the chaos, Clara finally manages to grab Mason's arm and pull him out of harm's way. They stumble toward James, who is still struggling with the control panel. Sweat pours down his face as he works. Time is running out. The lead zombie gets to its feet, its eyes fixed on James now. It's fast, too fast. James doesn't have time to turn around, he's completely absorbed in the control panel. The others are backing him up, trying to fight off the lesser zombies that are slowly closing in. "We need a distraction," Clara yells, pulling Mason behind a metal column for cover. James doesn't respond. He's too focused on the task at hand, but he can feel the zombie's presence closing in. He takes a deep breath and pulls a final lever. With a deafening screech, the machines suddenly stop, the tanks grinding to a halt. The glowing green liquid stops pulsing, and the humming sound that had filled the room fades away. James exhales sharply, his eyes darting between the panel and the advancing zombies. But the lead zombie isn't backing down. It takes a step forward, its eyes cold with calculated rage. The survivors are trapped, they've shut down the machines, but the zombies are still coming, smarter than ever. And now, they know who the real threat is. James pulls his gun, ready to fight. "Clara, Mason, get to the exit. I'll hold them off." "No!" Clara protests, shaking her head. "We're not leaving you behind. You don't have a choice." James shouts, his voice firm. "If we don't get out now, it'll be too late. I'll make sure you have a chance to escape." Mason looks between them, his face twisted with indecision. Finally, he nods, his jaw set. "We'll make it out. We'll finish this, James." James gives them one last, lingering glance before turning his attention back to the zombie advancing toward him. He's not going down without a fight. The lead zombie lunges, its sharp claws raking through the air. James fires several shots, but it's not enough. The zombie is too fast, too strong. It dodges and swipes at him, knocking the gun from his hand. The sound of more footsteps grows louder as the horde continues to close in, but James doesn't give up. He tackles the lead zombie, knocking it off balance, and punches it in the face. The creature recoils, its growl like a primal warning. Clara and Mason, meanwhile, have made their way to the back exit, but it's clear they're not safe yet. More zombies are emerging from the shadows, and they know the next few moments could be their last. Go! James yells, his voice hoarse with effort. Now! With a final glance over his shoulder, Clara and Mason sprint for the exit, leaving James to face the zombies alone. The door slams behind Clara and Mason as they run, the sound of it crashing shut like a final judgment. They don't stop, their legs burning with exhaustion, their hearts pounding in their chests as they race through the darkened hallways of the facility. The faint screeching from behind them tells them all they need to know, the horde is hot on their heels. Keep moving! Mason yells, grabbing Clara's arm as she stumbles. We can't afford to slow down. Clara nods, wiping the sweat from her brow. Her thoughts race back to James, still fighting off the monsters in the control room. He's buying us time, she thinks desperately, but it's hard to silence the dread creeping into her mind. How long will he last? The facility is labyrinthine, its walls stretching in all directions, making it harder for Clara and Mason to stay oriented. They turn corners, leap over debris, and dash through narrow corridors, only to be met with more darkened passageways, more dead ends. But then, they see it, a large, rusted door at the end of the hallway. Light leaks from beneath it, a sign of escape, a promise of survival. That's the exit. Clara shouts, her voice cracking with a mix of fear and relief. Mason doesn't waste any time. He pushes forward, grabbing the door's handle and pulling with all his strength. The door creaks open, revealing the outside world, the sun beginning to rise, casting a pale, hopeful light across the barren desert. But as they step into the daylight, the sounds of chaos behind them become almost deafening. Screams, roars, and the unmistakable crunch of bones echo from the control room. James is still inside, holding off the smarter zombies with everything he has. The very thought of leaving him behind makes Clara's stomach twist in agony. We can't just leave him. Clara protests, turning back toward the entrance. Mason grabs her arm, stopping her. We don't have a choice. If we go back in, we're as good as dead. We have to survive, Clara. For James. For everyone. Clara looks back at the door, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and determination. She knows he's right, but it doesn't make it any easier. The guilt of leaving James behind weighs heavily on her. Still, there's no time to mourn now. They can't afford to fail. As the wind picks up, they hear the unmistakable sound of the undead breaking through the facility, tearing their way toward the exit. The desert is their only chance, but they know that their safety is short-lived. The smarter zombies will soon follow. Let's go, Clara says, her voice breaking but resolute. We make it count. The two survivors turn away from the facility and sprint toward the desert, each step carrying them further from the nightmare they've left behind. But the horizon seems endless, the world before them vast and unforgiving. It's not over, not by a long shot. The world has changed, and the true battle for survival is just beginning. Meanwhile, back inside the facility, James fights with every ounce of strength he has left. The lead zombie is relentless, its sharp claws carving through the air, its intelligence outpacing the human mind. The room is a blur of motion as James dodges the zombie's attacks, but there's no escaping its reach. He's cornered. The horde is closing in. There's nowhere left to run. The facility groans, the walls shuddering as the dead break through every possible entrance. The air is thick with dust and the stench of decay. James's breath is shallow as he turns to face the approaching wave of zombies. There's no more time for escape. He's made his peace with that. He takes one final look at the door, the one Clara and Mason escaped through. His heart aches with the knowledge that they're safe, but the battle isn't won yet. If these zombies are to be stopped, someone has to hold the line. With a defiant roar, James charges forward, meeting the lead zombie head-on, throwing himself into the fray once more. The world fades around him as he fights. Every punch, every strike, is his last stand against the nightmare that has overtaken the world. The zombies are smarter, but so is he. He knows their weaknesses, their patterns. He's learned everything he can, and now, he uses it all. He pushes them back, one step at a time, but for how long? A sudden, sharp pain shoots through his side. He collapses to the ground, gasping for breath. The lead zombie stands over him, its claws reaching down, but then something unexpected happens. The creature hesitates. The room stills. The other zombies stop moving, their heads tilting in unison. The lead zombie looks down at James, its eyes narrowing in recognition. In a strange, almost human-like gesture, it reaches out and places a hand on his shoulder. For a brief, haunting moment, there's silence. Then, as if deciding its fate, the zombie steps back, leaving James on the floor. The others follow its lead, retreating into the shadows. The facility is quiet once more, save for the sound of James's labored breathing. James stares at the retreating zombies, confusion and fear flooding his mind. Why did they stop? What did it mean? Were they changing again, evolving in ways he couldn't understand? As he struggles to his feet, he knows this is far from over. The world is no longer what it once was, and the battle for humanity's survival is only just beginning. But for now, in this moment of uncertainty, James is left with one thought: the smarter the enemy, the harder the fight. And the fight is far from finished. This is the conclusion of Inside the Desert Outpost, where the dead are getting smarter, where the survivors make a harrowing escape, and James makes his final stand. The story leaves an open door for more, hinting that this isn't the end of the zombie outbreak, just the beginning of a new chapter. Let me know if you need any adjustments or if you'd like another story outline.